Hey, everybody, and we're live. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Mindset Live this wonderful Monday evening, this Memorial Day, if you're in North America. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by the usual gang from Mindset Live. Let's go straight over up to Canada and Mr. Steve Genier, the creator, the host of Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Gareth. How are you?
How's it going, man?
Good. Can't complain.
How's the weekend treating you?
Beautiful day today. Hot.
Is it hot? Does it get hot in Canada?
Oh, it's really hot. More humid.
Oh, humid. Yeah, that's the worst. Yeah, humidity is the worst. I'll go with the dry heat anytime. Humidity's a nightmare.
Just tack on an extra 10 degrees.
Speaking of nightmares, let's bring in your other co-host for the Nocturnal Frequency Show, Mr. Alex Rondini. Hello, Alex.
Good evening.
Good evening. I bid you
Good evening.
welcome. Did you spill
I
any?
forgot to wear my fangs.
Did you spill any beer tonight, Alex?
Not yet.
All right,
Not
that's
yet.
good. That's good. And our third participant who's having some computer issues, but I'll try and introduce him, and we'll see if we'll get something on the signal here. And that is Mr. Justin Villarreal. Hello, Justin.
Evening, everyone.
Yeah, he's
Thank
not
you for having
there.
me on.
He's not there. We don't see him. Let me see if I can.
I'm the real ghost here.
He's the real ghost. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Hang on. Let's see. Oh, this is fun. We're doing this live on the air. How great is that? All right, there we go. That's the best we can get it until we get Justin back in. You should say something, Justin. Or not, whichever you want to do. Okay.
We'll see if it turns on.
Okay. This is a world exclusive, folks. Thank you for all your patience for hanging in there while we deal with Justin's technical
Yeah, don't hold
difficulties.
your breath.
Don't hold your breath. He's right now. He's pulling in wires and flipping switches. It's like Castle Frankenstein over there. He's trying to get the monster
Yeah,
to
I'm
come to
literally
life.
going through my settings as we're talking here.
You know, I
See
see
if I
that.
turn them on and off.
I see the little circle with his profile picture in there, and every time he talks, it looks like the mouth is talking.
There you go. Yeah. Well. We right now, Justin, you're a blank screen. You're a voiceless entity, which is perfect for some of the topics we're going to be discussing tonight. You're just a voice in the void, coming from the ether. Well, let's get into the show then, and hopefully Justin will fix his technical difficulties and magically appear. If not, we'll just have his non-corporeal voice sweeping through the atmosphere of the show. So tonight, guys, we're going to have a wide range of topics, a lot of discussion, but we're going to delve heavily into the paranormal. But primarily, we're going to talk about cryptids and other dimensions, and whether or not the two subjects are in some way related. Now, I want to kick things off because, as far as I know, I've never had an encounter with a cryptid, but I know someone on the show this evening has. And I want to go to Mr. Steve Genier. Steve, now, I remember you telling me this story on Nocturnal Frequency a while ago. This happened a number of years ago where you were walking home from work late one night and you encountered something very, very strange. Could you relate that story to us?
Yeah. Actually, you have him on the show right now, my co-host.
Yeah. I was standing on my hind legs when you saw me.
No, I guess 2004, I believe it was. I was working night shift, and I was off at 2:00 in the morning, and I was walking home, as I usually did. We only had, the one car at the time, so I didn't mind walking home as long as I had my headset, listening to Coast to Coast.
East of the Rockies.
East of the Rocky,
You're on the
with
air.
good old Art Bell.
Yeah,
Art
absolutely.
Bell. Anyways, I was walking home, and I was about to approach a bridge, a sectional bridge, and the opposite side, like the other bridge, on the opposite side of the roadway, something ran up and stopped in the grassy medium in between the two bridges, and just stopped, and I stopped because I'd seen it, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly it was. It just, at first, it looked like it might have been a coyote or something. And next thing you know, it decides to get up on its hind legs and just stand there like a human.
So
And
like,
I'm
let me get this straight. So it looked like a dog of some kind, or maybe a large animal like a wolf or a coyote.
I
And
don't
then
know
it
what it
then
really
it
looked
stood
like.
up. It stood up.
Yeah, I don't know what it really looked like until it actually stood up. It just looked like an animal, like a mangy animal. And I just stopped and stared. Like there was a stare down, and basically, it got up on its hind legs. And okay, so what exactly am I,
Yeah.
encountering here? In my mind, I'm trying to think what animal can do this in this area that looks like this. It's not a squirrel. It's not a raccoon. It's not a skunk. Too tall. I mean, this thing, when it was on its hind legs,
Uh-huh.
had to have been at least uh, almost 5 feet, if not almost 6 feet.
Now,
And it's
when it stood up, Steve, because I've
yeah.
never experienced anything like this, but when it stood up,
Mhm.
did it look like an animal on its hind legs, or did it look like a human being? Did it have a humanoid outline, or did it really look like some dogs that can go up on their hind legs and stand there for a few minutes and then fall down? What what did it look like?
It it looked like it was an animal, but the head was unusually shaped. It was smaller.
Uh huh.
Um, if it had ears, they were very small. I could not really notice ears, and I couldn't really notice the eyes from the distance. No, they weren't glowing red.
Ah.
Right. No. I know a lot of people will tell you, oh, yeah, and the eyes were glowing red. No, they weren't glowing red. At least I did not see them glow red. And the arms, the upper torso was very skinny, very slender. Actually, the body itself was very slender, and the arms, the upper or the legs, whatever, the upper legs, the front legs, were short, shorter than a human's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it stood there for a good 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes
Wow. Well,
before it finally just
that's the creepy
before it
part, though, for me, though, Steve, is
yeah.
that you made eye contact. In other words, you were aware of it, and it was aware of you.
Oh,
So you were
absolutely.
kind
Yes.
of staring each other down, so to speak.
I'm an avid hiker. I love the outdoors, whatever like that. And instinct, instinct kicks in because I come across all sorts of animals when I'm usually out there trail running or whatever. And I've never encountered anything like this before in my life. And so basic instinct told me, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm waiting for this thing to make its move. I can run all I want, and if this thing wanted to catch up to
Oh
me,
yeah.
it
Mm-hmm.
would. So I just stood there and,
What
and just observed, just like it was doing. It was just observing me and watching what I was doing.
was there? Was there an ominous feeling though? Was there a feel? I know you were probably shocked to see it and intrigued, but
Mm.
and maybe even excited. But was there an element of fear? Was there this is probably a wild animal, a very strange looking wild animal
Mm.
that could
I,
attack me. Was that vibe going on?
I don't know if I was afraid. If anything, I was really inquisitive because, like I said, my brain is trying to process exactly what I'm looking at, and I just, every animal that came to mind, it didn't match. It just didn't make any
Uh
sense.
huh.
A mangy bear, a sick bear. There are no bears in this area. None, absolutely none.
Right.
And if one does show up, the whole community knows about it. But there was no bear in the area. No sightings of bear at all. It certainly wasn't a fox. It certainly wasn't a coyote because again, this thing was standing out on its hind legs for 10 minutes at least
Watching
before
you.
it got. watching.
Wow.
And finally, when it dropped back down to all fours, it ran onto my side of the road, and then back down underneath the bridge on my side. So of course, when it finally went under, I took my time. I actually crossed to the other side, and keeping an eye on this. Just look at what the hell's going on here. What did I just see?
Yeah.
Years later, I started doing some research on it, and asking all sorts of people in the know, like hunters and people who work at zoos and stuff like that. I'm asking questions and saying, look, is there any animals that that look like this that can make this sort of posturing and body language, and nothing came to mind, at least for that area. It wasn't until I discovered a news article from the Toronto Sun from 1972, I believe it was. I can't remember exactly the year. I think it was 72. It was in the 70s anyways. And there was an artist's rendition of a creature called the Toronto Tunnel Creature. And there was a man who was out walking his dog, and it let the dog off the leash, and the dog went into a large storm drain sewer area, and he went in after it to fetch it. And when he got in there, he'd encountered this creature that was coined the Toronto Tunnel Creature, and the artist's rendition that drew from the description that the guy gave him. When I saw this, I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I saw, minus the red eyes. I mean, that's exactly what I saw.
Let me ask you this, Steve. When you were talking to people after the fact, asking people, who were aware of wild animals in the area and describing it to them, what was their reaction? Were they like very intrigued, or were they like, were you smoking something? What was going, that kind? What was their reaction to this?
Not at all. They were intrigued, and like most people I've talked to have been very, very intrigued. Years later, we did a show with a good friend of ours, a journalist and writer, Chris Hawley, who wrote a story for it. She interviewed me on this, and she wrote a story called "The Thing on the Bridge," and it was published for UFO Digest.
Oh wow!
And when it was published, shortly after, she received several emails from people in the area that had noticed or had this similar sightings in that direct area.
So other witnesses, other people had seen this creature, unbeknownst to you at the time.
Yes, years later after I'd seen it. So I mean, who knows, right? Who knows?
And as
it's.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's still under review. The investigation is out there. Like I said, is it an undocumented animal? Who knows? We just don't know right now.
Let me ask Alex. Alex, have you? I mean, obviously you've heard this story from Steve before, but what's your take on it? Have you experienced anything like this? Any cryptid sightings?
I haven't, unfortunately, but just so that the people know who are listening, I have posted an article on the chat that will have reference to that article that Steve was talking about. It's not directly from the newspaper itself, but it does reference the newspaper and the actual article itself that was written. I think it was back in 1979. But no, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't experienced any cryptids myself. And I even used to live many years ago. I lived on a farm, middle of nowhere, and you think if anybody's going to see anything strange, it would be somewhere there. But I honestly didn't see anything.
How about you, Justin? Assuming you're still there. Are you there, Justin?
No.
No, you're not there?
No cryptids. No cryptids or anything. I'm in the ether.
You're in the ether.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm
He's-
coming from you from the other
He's
side.
the voice. Yes.
Nah, no cryptids or anything. I think the weirdest thing that I saw was while in Indiana, we were outside playing, and we looked up in the sky, me and a couple of the kids, and we saw something floating, really high up in the sky, and it stopped, and
Uh-huh.
it literally sped off and kind of just disappeared. And there were other people outside that saw it, and and we were all just kind of like looking at each other, like, "What the heck is going on?" And that was it. That was really it. I mean, the next biggest experience I had was seeing a flash of light, or I should say, a glowing orb, kind of pass around my apartment building. And just disappear as it went around to the left hand side of it, but no cryptids or anything.
Nothing
All
like
just
that.
maybe weird, yeah, weird UFO or spiritual stuff.
Yeah. While you're talking, Justin, I'm trying to figure out your Skype
Yeah,
image here.
magically
I'm trying to
turn it
get.
on.
Yeah, you're like disappearing and vanishing, and
You see it? It's happening. It's
no,
trying. It's trying to.
I don't see it right now. I see. Let me see here. Let's see.
I'm trying, guys. I'm.
No, I don't see you, man. You've right now. I got your name on Alex's face. So let me let me jump out of there and go back to our normal viewing. Sorry about that,
There
viewers. You're watching us trying to fix stuff on the fly. So cryptids themselves. I mean, there's been so many stories over the years. I mean, I guess the most famous cryptid of all is, of course, Bigfoot. Or Sasquatch, or the Yeti, the abominable snowman, all related, I'm assuming. And I know that in the Pacific Northwest of the United States and up in Canada, there's been many sightings and encounters of Bigfoot. Are you guys aware of anyone near your area or anything like that? Let's go to Steve.
Oh yeah, there's Ontario is a hotbed for Bigfoot sightings and experiences. Plenty of them, especially in northern Ontario. But there have been some closer to the southern areas of Ontario. But like I said, most of them in northern Ontario.
Mm-hmm. And I think was it a few weeks ago on Nocturnal Frequency, you had a Bigfoot expert on the show. And
Yeah, well. Yeah, Jamie King, who's he's more of an amateur researcher, if you will, who believes in the I guess Alex, I guess you'd put it the supernatural aspects of Bigfoot's folklore, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we posed a couple of questions to him when he was on the show regarding the possibility of Bigfoot being an interdimensional creature. And he didn't outright deny it, but it's one of those things. And we also posed the question to him, or I posed the question to him, saying, if Bigfoot does physically exist in this realm, how come up until now no one's ever found any remains?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that he basically agreed with. I mean, no one's ever come across any remains of Bigfoot or any of those creatures there. So it lends credence that if these creatures do in fact exist, that they're more interdimensional than anything else.
Yeah,
or even paranormal for that matter.
Yeah, it does seem that way because people do encounter this creature, that we call Bigfoot. It's an imaginative name, though, right? He's got big feet, so hey, what should we call him? Hey, let's call him Bigfoot. But yeah, it would make sense. I mean, for hundreds of years, people have been encountering this creature. Right up to the present day, it still happens regularly. Whether they're out camping, hiking, driving through a secluded area, and when someone's least expecting it, they'll encounter this creature or catch a glimpse of an ape-like creature in the woods. That doesn't make any sense. That they should not exist. But you do bring up a valid point. You'd think that over time, sooner or later, somebody's going to discover some bones or some hair or something along those lines, which could then be brought in and genetically analyzed, and we'd know once and for all what it was. Now, having said that, I do recall a Bigfoot researcher in the mid 2000s. I think her name was Melba Ketchum, if I'm getting that correct. And she in fact did get some alleged Bigfoot hair from out in the woods somewhere, and sent it off anonymously to several different labs to be studied. So there'd be no, so it wouldn't be tainted by her name or her research. And all of the labs came back inconclusive. They couldn't place what animal the hair was. Are you guys familiar with that story? Justin, are you familiar with that?
No, actually.
How about Steve or Alex?
Yep. Yeah, I remember that story. Yep,
I've heard
definitely.
of it briefly, but I didn't delve into it.
What was your take on it?
Just a lot of things when it comes to Bigfoot research. A lot of it, I don't know, is quite hokey, to be honest. Honestly, it's not to say that all of it is.
Mm-hmm.
That there is some really cutting edge research out there, but I think a lot of the stuff that the bigger sort of mainstream news that picks up some of this stuff, I kind of find it just pretty hokey, and I have a hard time believing it, to be honest.
No, I completely agree. I mean, even the whole concept of Bigfoot, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds so stupid, but yet people still encounter this creature. And while there are con men, there are liars, there are people out there just making stuff up for the hell of it, there's also people who are being completely honest and truthful and explaining, or trying to the best of their ability, explaining an encounter that they can't really comprehend.
Well, I think that's with anything when you look at the paranormal or cryptozoology or anything, ufology or whatever. There's that that serious sort of line that few people take, and then there's the other line that people are just wanting to get popular and rich and famous and all this kind of stuff, and look for money and stardom, and it's really a shame, but and the Bigfoot realm is no different.
Well,
there's a dark shadow there.
The whole paranormal field is unfortunately a magnet for for liars, con men, and mentally ill people. Let's be honest. The ufology, the ghosts, the paranormal, the cryptids, all of these fields is literally like a magnet for people who are bullshit artists, who are mentally deranged, or just outright liars. Mm-hmm. But even though those people are drawn to these subjects, there's still a layer of truth. There's still something going on. There's still a very real phenomena. Speaking of Bigfoot, I want to bring up the Patterson-Gimli footage. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Does everyone know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
For viewers, if you're not familiar, you just Google the Patterson-Gimli footage. It was I think 1967, Pacific Northwest. Two prospectors were out on their horses, out in the middle of nowhere. And they had a film camera, a Cine 8mm film camera, and they were filming different scenes in the forest. And they stopped at a creek, and they looked across the creek, and they saw this ape-like creature just walking along. So they grabbed his camera and filmed this creature. And it's probably the most famous Bigfoot footage ever.
It's definitely the most notorious one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sorry, go ahead, Steve.
If you look hard enough too, now it's on YouTube. There's somebody completely restored the footage to high def 2K, I believe, or is it 4K? I think it was 2K. I can't remember, but the footage is just phenomenal. If you see it.
They stabilized it, right? Whereas the guy who was, with the camera, he was all over the place, right? He was nervous, scared, whatever, excited, and the camera was very shaky. So what they've done is they've scanned in at a very high resolution each frame of the film, and then run it through a computer to stabilize it. So the creature will remain steady as it walks, but the everything around it moves. So it's easier to watch, and it's a more fluid movement. Before I get into what I think of the footage, Justin, are you still there?
Yep.
What's are you familiar with this footage? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Is that the original Bigfoot footage? That's been...
It's the most famous Bigfoot footage.
Yes, yes, I'm aware of it.
And do you have any thoughts about it?
I mean, it looks. I mean, I think the overall discussion was that it was a hoax, but I mean, without that being part of the overall perspective, I would say it's a pretty good hoax. You know, I even buy into when they point out the muscle showing as he's walking and stuff like that. It tends to look real. I mean, just the height, the stature. It doesn't necessarily look like a costume or even a costume from the was that the late 60s?
I think 1967. I think it was 67 or 68. So like 50 something years ago.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, just an observance, observation of that. I mean, it looked pretty real. I mean, even now, I think it's, although people find it as a hoax, it's still debatable if it's even real, and that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Let me ask Steve. You think it's real?
I'd like to believe it is. I know they came out. One part of the party involved with this came out and said it was a hoax. But then that was quickly covered up and reiterated or something to that matter. When you watch the footage, especially the restored footage, I think some researcher was alluding to it actually being a female.
Yes.
And not a male.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then I don't know. I'd like to believe it's real, but again, it's really like when it comes to stage makeup and special effects, they weren't anywhere close to anything like that at that point in time. Right. So I don't know. I'd like to believe it was real, but
yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them if it was faked. So,
Alex, what are your thoughts?
I think there's something valid to that video. I mean, I've heard all the debunkers, for lack of a better term, when they said, you know what, it's a man in an ape suit and what have you. But the movement of the actual creature, the length of the arms, first of all, and to have that sort of movement happen if it was a guy in the suit would be kind of tricky to do. And like Steve said, the kind of effects that were available at that time, I don't think, at least not for two guys like that, just it would take a lot of money in order to come up with a fake video, in the hopes that it would make you rich and famous.
Right. Well, I don't think it. I mean, it made them famous. I don't think it made them rich.
No,
exactly.
But it definitely made them famous. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The movement of the creature is very strange. It's not human-like at all. And yeah, it's a female. You can actually see the breasts on the creature. Especially in the new HD footage when they've cleaned up the print, you can see it very clearly. You can see the breasts and the movement of the breasts as the creature is walking. And the thing that always got me is, like, if this was just a dude in a suit, as even Evil Earl just mentioned, dude in a suit. I don't think it is. I think it is something. I think the footage is real. I think it's a legitimate creature, whatever creature it is.
Had that video come out recently, I would agree with Evil Earl in saying not necessarily a guy in a suit. It was just CGI, if anything, right?
Yeah. Well, that's good.
This is back in the '60s. We're talking about,
and
and just the amount of money it would take just to have that sort of equipment, or to have it flow the way it did, is a lot of money.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's the real deal. And you mentioned the state of makeup right there. Around 67, 68 is when they were getting ready to make the first Planet of the Apes movie. And as great as the makeup effects are in the original Planet, I mean, looking back 50 years, okay, it looks a little hokey, but at the time, that was cutting edge, right? That was the best makeup that money could buy. And yet, two guys on horseback out in the middle of nowhere with a cheap little film camera can create footage and images better than the top Hollywood studio. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, they should be hired at the 20th Century Fox on Planet of the Apes 2, not running around in the woods chasing some guy in a monkey suit. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It's crazy.
Maybe that's what they were hoping for.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's why it's so hard to. I mean, you see how much footage is coming out now, from camera phones to whatever, of alleged Bigfoot footage, and most of the time it's blurry as hell, or it's just like you can't really make anything out, or it just seems too staged. It amazes me with the amount of coverage we have now that we haven't got some legitimate, or have we got some legitimate footage? Because I mean, look at. Now we're in a state where we've been fooled so many times, it doesn't matter anymore. You've cried wolf too many times. Nobody's going to believe you if you do have some legitimate footage.
Well, it's also extremely easy, to say, it's fake. It's a guy in a suit.
Well, yeah,
that's the easiest way to go, right? Is to dismiss it, because if you say it's real, suddenly you have a stake in the narrative, right? And if it does turn out to be fake later on, you're going to look foolish. But if it's easy to dismiss everything, it's a dude in a suit, as evil.
Wait a second,
will say. But
am I in an episode of Westworld?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it is. It's easier to dismiss. A light in the sky. It's a plane. You're in a haunted house and there's a noise. The house is settling. Right? It's so much easier to blow it off than to actually dig into it and research it.
Well, let me ask you guys. Well, let me ask, Gareth. What got you? Like, what made you interested in Bigfoot? Do you remember the very first thing that brought its attention to you?
Oh man. I don't remember. I remember being, as a kid, being very curious about all things strange. I remember getting books in the library and stuff on the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and anything that was weird or strange or not generally accepted. You bring the book home and you show your dad. You say, "Hey, Dad, look at this Bigfoot. You think it's real?" And he's like, "Get out of here. You're out of your mind." But it's intriguing. It's always fascinating me. I don't think there was ever one case that really dragged me into Bigfoot. And I'm really not a huge Bigfoot, type of guy. I'm not like heavily into it. I do find it very curious, and I'm interested. And I do think there's something to it. I don't think it's all nonsense. I really do think there is something out there. As to what it is, I have no idea. I don't know whether it's like they call it like a wood ape. Like one of the theories is there's an unknown species of ape indigenous to North America that we've yet to discover. That's hidden away in these vast swathes of forests that through all the Pacific Northwest up and through Canada. These huge and I don't think people truly realize how absolutely enormous these forests are.
Look at in Canada alone.
Yeah.
Next to the Amazon, you have the boreal forest that stretches all across northern Ontario. It's massive, literally acres upon acres right across the country. And look at Canada is a massive country,
sure,
land-wise, landmass. So.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, and I think people, they're so insulated. Oh, we've been everywhere. We've charted every nook and cranny of the planet. We know everything, but there's huge, vast areas of Earth that's basically untouched. So the theory of an undiscovered ape species that like they call a wood ape, it's possible. But then we have the issue that I think Alex brought up earlier in regard to nobody's found remains.
No.
Well, it's look at it from the native indigenous people and how they perceived Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and how they looked upon it and believed that it was more or less like I guess a Wendigo, if you will. Some like scenarios similar to a Wendigo, but it wasn't from, and we're going to get into this, the same dimension. It came from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They believed it came from elsewhere,
Right.
and would come to them in certain situations. Their encounters with a Sasquatch meant something to them.
Yeah, and it would come from another realm, another area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting also though that occasionally, this is not very common, but occasionally there's UFO cases where people encounter UFOs and their occupants and Bigfoot. And I know that sounds like you're really, really out there if you're like, yeah, I was abducted by aliens and Bigfoot at the same time.
You know what?
You sound like you're completely mental.
Do you know anything about the Bridgewater Triangle?
No, tell me more.
There's a prime example right there of the amount of activity that has gone on. It stretches from Connecticut into Massachusetts. It includes, it's notorious for mafia dumpings of bodies, paranormal activity, UFO activity, and here we go. Here's the kicker, and I bet you Alex is going to smile his ass off when I tell him this. Sorry, when I say this, the Pukwudgie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah. So
I have not I have not heard about this, so I'm intrigued.
Look into the Bridgewater Triangle, and we've had a couple of people on to talk about it on the show in the past. An intriguing area. There's just so much activity and so many stories. In fact, I can't think of the house now. The Axe Murder house. I can't think. What's her name?
Axe Murder house.
Yeah,
the Axe Murder house, I believe, is in there, situated within the Bridgewater Triangle, realm 2. Oh God!
Let's see if I can find it. It's the Villisca.
Yeah, no, not the Villisca.
Oh, okay.
No, not the Villisca. It's it's a woman's name. I can't remember offhand.
Well, we got Vanier traditionalist. Hello.
There you go. You got somebody who lives
Yeah,
within.
I'm just going to say he or she, I'm not sure which, is saying that they live in the Bridgewater Triangle. So maybe they've witnessed something or experienced something interdimensional or multi-dimensional. Also, Evil Earl is coming in and saying that I think it's a real being, not interdimensional. It could be both. Could be both.
It could be both.
Yeah.
It could be both. I mean, this is the thing. We simply don't know.
We don't know.
We can
Correct.
sit here and speculate in theory, and the evidence, if there ever is any evidence, will show us that way. But unfortunately, there hasn't really been. I don't know if you noticed. There was a series of photos circulating around of an eaten hand somewhere in Mexico, I believe. I can't remember, in Mexico, and people were claiming it was the hand of a Bigfoot.
Like a severed hand. They'd found like
a severed hand that had been mauled by animals, right? I think I posted the pictures on the Nocturnal Frequency Facebook page. So if you have time later on, take a look at it. I don't know. Is it real? I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating.
Well, so,
You like to believe.
something like that is easily resolved, though, right? They just
Yeah.
get a little bit of skin or something, genetic testing. They find out in no time whether it's a human hand, an ape hand, or something or something else. Justin, it's difficult to know when you're here or not because I don't see you. I think you might have turned your camera off. I think so.
Did it come back on?
No. We just hear your voice. We don't see not even a blank space or whatever. But what's your take on all this?
I kind of agree with your person in chat there that was saying that it's natural because from an idea of what we have already really is that we have animals that we should have been extinct or we thought they were extinct. So it's a total possibility that maybe some, ancestor of ours somehow survived, all these thousands of years and, lived in caves or something. And I really think it's a possibility that if they did survive, they would use the cave systems to get around. And if they were here long enough, they would have figured these cave systems out by now. But there are theories out there that suggest that one of our big events that the majority of people that died were obviously above ground, where the rest were below ground. So it's a total possibility that maybe even, we adapted at some point, and that particular, species of Bigfoot stayed underground. This is why it's so elusive, I even had a person on just recently, back in October, that had caught a picture of a footprint which could be Bigfoot here in Illinois. We have sightings as well. And if you follow that, it goes somewhat with the hills and the rivers as well.
There's no dense forest in Illinois. Maybe I'm wrong here. I'm not sure, but
there is towards the middle of the middle of the state is where it's at. And as you get up to the northern part, where we're closer to Wisconsin, it's more denser. But from what I've seen, the reports go by, it goes from central Illinois, makes its way up to Wisconsin, so it stays mostly to the western part of Illinois, or it goes off into Missouri and Iowa and goes all the way up into Minnesota and on into Wisconsin. Then you follow from that point, you will see, what was it? I want to say there might be some North Dakota, but pretty much it's Washington and Oregon, and I think parts of Colorado that have the sightings of Bigfoot, specifically Bigfoot, not like a skunk ape or anything, but the Bigfoot sightings. Right. So it's usually just north of within central Midwestern area out to somewhat central west on north that we see a lot of these sightings of specifically Bigfoot. And in those areas, we go from plains to mountains to caves to all sorts of different things. So, I mean, that's why I can see it's totally possible if it was a living creature, it could survive. If it lived specifically hidden in caves and just survived along the rivers and street, anything like that, if it learned that. And I think that would be the most logical explanation, that it's just an ancestor of ours that survived. Otherwise, it could totally be some spirit elemental that we don't know about yet.
It does seem, though, that people all over the world, regardless of where they live, I know there's in Australia, they've had sightings.
Yes.
In Europe, in Russia, they've had sightings, and as crazy as it may sound, they've even had sightings in the UK, which blows my mind.
Oh wow!
Like, that makes zero sense to me. Now, indigenous wood ape in the vast wilderness in North America, I can buy that. I can see that might be a possibility. But an undiscovered wood ape in the UK, no, that's not happening. So if people are seeing it there, it kind of really does point down into the path of something interdimensional.
Yeah.
Could it be a leprechaun?
What about the
hairy leprechaun?
Like the north?
Yeah, the northern part of England, Scotland.
No,
Scotland,
dude.
yeah.
There are forests. There are forests, but it's been so I can buy that there are areas of North America that are completely uninhabited and very rarely, or if ever, visited by man. Not so much in the UK. That's not happening. So
It's been discovered, everything.
Exactly, yeah, everything's been discovered. So if people are encountering these creatures in an island like the United Kingdom, and they're not, con men or liars or mentally ill or whatever, if they're sane, rational, normal people legitimately having these experiences, it really does point into the direction of something interdimensional, something coming through from somewhere else for whatever reason, visiting, doing whatever, and then going away.
Gareth.
Yeah.
The house. Alex pointed out in a Marson chat. It's the Lizzie Borden house.
Oh, the Lizzie. I thought Lizzie Borden was in the United States.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Within the Bridgewater Triangle.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you. Yeah, Lizzie Borden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lizzie Borden has become very famous thanks to paranormal TV shows. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
It's like every paranormal. They come up with an idea for a paranormal TV show, and I guarantee you, by episode 3, they're like, "Let's go to the Lizzie Borden house." It's unbelievable. Those guys are in there every minute with that place.
Mm-hmm.
The
Pulling it out, taking up the resources.
Exactly.
Those places.
Yeah, the Lizzie. They go. Okay, let's see. Gettysburg, check.
Yep.
Lizzie Borden, check. Every show you can imagine, they go to those
State.
Places. Yeah, exactly.
Waverly Hills.
The Waverly, Penn State, all that stuff. Let's get Jack Osborne to run around Penn State for 3 episodes. It's like there's a million other interesting places to go, but they want to go.
Yep.
Anyway, we're ranting. Let's not rant. Interdimensional. Now, I want to bring this up. I want to ask Steve about this because Steve and I share a love for obscure horror movies. And this past week, I watched the Blu-ray of. Can you guess, Steve?
Wait a sec. Mind meld time. It's not coming to me. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I watched From Beyond.
From Beyond, yes.
From
Stuart
Beyond,
Gordon.
which has a very, very other dimensional feel to it, right? Because the entire plot works around scientists accessing another dimension.
And using, it's been a while, the pineal gland?
Yes.
What the pineal gland, right?
Yeah,
Pineal gland.
the pineal gland.
Yeah.
Yes.
The third eye.
Yes.
It's not the third leg; it's the third eye.
The third eye. And basically the plot, if you haven't seen this movie, and if you haven't, you should watch it. It's a great movie.
Oh, it's great.
I mean, it's very 80s, and the effects are a little hokey, but it's a lot of fun.
Stuart Gordon, you can't go wrong.
No, it's a lot of fun to watch.
Is that From Beyond?
From Beyond.
Yes.
Have you seen that one, Justin?
Of course I have.
Of course.
With Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Mr. Herbert West.
Favorite actor.
Yeah.
I feel left out. I'm the only one who hasn't
You
watched
haven't
it.
seen it?
Oh, check it out.
Come on.
You need
man.
to watch a crap load of movies.
Yeah, apparently I do.
You do.
Okay, that's the plan when we come
We
over
left
there.
to a
We're gonna be watching-
movie marathon.
Yeah.
Well, you're both invited in October if this lockdown isn't. Come out to the horror fest.
the
We're
horror
gonna sneak
fest.
over the border. I'm actually
Yeah, there you
have
go.
to immigrate over the border.
So the basic plot of From Beyond is that this scientist develops this machine to vibrate the space around
Okay.
him in tune with the pineal gland in your head.
Pineapple
The
gland.
pineapple
That
gland.
gland.
The
gland.
third eye. And it awakens the third eye and allows you to see another dimension. And there's these creatures that are. Do you remember this, Steve? They're like eels.
Yep. Mhm.
And the story postulates that these creatures are around us
Mhm.
all the
But we
time,
can't see them. Yeah, we can't see
all
them.
the time, but they're unaware of us and we're unaware of them. And when the vibration kicks in and we can perceive the other dimension, which is around us right now as we speak, these creatures that are swimming around, they perceive us also. And remember, he bites him on the face. It was great.
Yeah. Hey, it comes from the mind of Lovecraft. I mean,
Yes.
how can you go wrong?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. H.P. Lovecraft. Justin, I hear you chanting in the background. Go ahead and tell us about it. Are you familiar with H.P.?
Yeah, I mean a little bit.
Uses it on a steak.
Yeah, the sauce, not the steak sauce. The
Yeah,
Lovecraft.
most of his stories were basically about almost celestial horrors in a sense. Old time gods that we kind of forgotten that may end up coming back and taking over the world again. That's really
Cthulhu.
pretty much it. Yeah,
When the stars are aligned properly, they'll rise.
They'll
Yes.
rise. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But do you
Yes.
think? I mean, our five senses. How we perceive reality, right? We have five senses that provide electrical impulses into our brain and form our picture of how reality functions. But there's more than that, right? Even in light, right? There's radio waves, there's infrared, all of these things
Yes.
that were it not for machines to detect them, we'd be oblivious of their existence, but yet there they are. So what else is going on as far as these dimensions? Like, we only perceive a three-dimensional reality.
Of course.
What about a fourth-dimensional reality, or a fifth dimension, or so on and so forth?
That's where the metaphysical comes into play.
Tell me more.
Humans have filters, and I know Justin's gonna chomp at the bit with this one. I know he is. He's just humans have filters from birth.
He's in another dimension right now as we speak.
Yeah.
We can only hear his voice.
Justin and I have had this conversation. I don't know how many times. We've discussed this on so many levels, but humans have filters from birth, and that is the physical world. We are taught to understand what is tangible. If we can't see it, it doesn't exist. That's what we're taught.
Hey, you sound like Alex now. Stop.
But the metaphysical world teaches.
I have input to that.
I know. We're going to come to you in a minute, Alex. Hang on there.
Yeah. The metaphysical world teaches you that the world isn't physical, but it is non-physical. It is it is all around you. It's made of vibrations, frequencies, and energy. And our eyes perceive something, our ears perceive something, our senses perceive something, but are they correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the question. Are we really seeing the correctness? I mean, what we see visually, is it real?
Yeah.
Our brain is trained to understand that is real. What we see is real. It's a reality.
Yeah, trying to deal with the uncertainty of things. It kind
Exactly.
of fills in the gaps, and that's where we have to question certain things, just from our point of view, because maybe we are seeing Bigfoot, or maybe we are tapping into a frequency of the past where Bigfoot is existing, and we're channeling in on that for whatever reason.
Not
And
necessarily the past, though. It could be
Yeah.
present.
Could be
It
the
could
future.
Of course.
Even the
Of
future.
course, yes, because it technically would be existing in all time frames.
Mhm.
Even with the dimension talk, that's we got the first dimension, which is almost linear. You see it as a line. You add the second dimension, you see a little more depth. The third dimension, and now you see all sides. The fourth dimension would be time. So you had time to understand, or at least to perceive those things you're seeing in those dimensions. And then after that, it's everything else from basically existing from this level of reality where we're aware that an ant exists, or getting higher into levels of awareness and reality where we're just a speck of light. That's the earth, and that's really where parts of the dimensions come from, is just how we exist, in that. What are these pockets? What are these layers of existence? And that's like, we're still trying to learn that, but we have a pretty good idea of what that is. And in those dimensions, or in those pockets, in a sense, anything is possible for the most part. That's where the multiverse exists. That's where all the
Multiverse,
Yeah, where maybe the metaphysical hard drive would be in that other pocket of dimension, because we are existing in at least 4 dimensions right now. We're perceiving 4 dimensions, but everything else existing
So
simultaneously.
it's height, width, depth. Height,
Yes,
width,
and
depth,
time.
and time is the fourth
Yes.
the
Time.
fourth dimension.
Yes. Yes.
A key phrase, a key element to this all too, Gareth, is called 0 point energy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that Tesla was able to patch into. And when you look at a lot of Tesla's work and his inventions, if you will, his patents, trademarks, or whatever, a lot of it being destroyed. But, he was able to understand certain things about being able to sort of draw from the metaphysical and bring it into the physical world. And that being, one popular one is now it's becoming cell towers, for instance. He believed that we could have free energy
Right, through the air.
and being transmitted from a tower.
Mm-hmm.
And basically getting rid of all the electrical wires and all this, and breaking free of
Wireless.
being tapped in, wireless.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you can't make money doing that though. You can't
No.
you can't charge people
that's
for
exact-
stuff through the air. So they got to shut
that's
that
exactly
guy down ASAP.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
Uh-huh.
You can essentially make all this. I mean, people don't. Electricity doesn't come from the electricity factory. You're doing something to generate that.
Yeah.
In the basics of that, even let's say people wanted to denote or degrade the idea of 0 point energy, that it's not coming from nowhere. Well, electricity it's coming from nowhere. It's literally us generating or creating a friction so we can tap into that.
Electricity is a byproduct. It's not the
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
byproduct of doing stuff.
You know what it is? It's exactly that.
It's pulling electrons.
It's where the metaphysical meets the physical.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, yeah, that would be the force. That is probably most likely what he's talking about, is a tapping into, I guess, that grid, in a sense that we're already tapping into by water, wind turbines and water, wind turbines, solar and everything, in a sense, because it's pulling that from nothing. Like, we're pulling electrons in order for us to get electricity, and that's pulling from everything around us.
Mhm.
Even if we wanted to, we can collect radio waves and convert that into electrical as well.
It's free energy. It's
Yes.
free energy, but yet we're paying for it.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
A whole
It's a-
different
yeah.
game. A whole different can of worms.
Let me
Yeah, and doing radio waves, you would need like a huge board to collect all those.
Yeah.
Let me ask,
You could do it. You could do.
let me because we talked earlier and you mentioned seeing is believing. Now I know Alex has mentioned this many times on the show, and I want to bring him here. What do you mean by that? And do you agree with anything that's been said so far, or not? What do you think, Alex?
I do agree with it. I do agree completely. As far as the different dimensions and that vibrate at different frequencies, as Steve was mentioning earlier, to simplify what he was basically saying, think of it as almost like a radio receiver. They have different channels for a reason, because if you didn't have that certain bandwidth, everything would bleed into everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we can only see what we're allowed to see is because if we didn't have these filters in place and saw everything that is available out there,
Yeah.
we would just go stir crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it,
That's a really good point.
right?
Yeah.
So we have those filters for a reason, to prevent us from going crazy or just not being productive at all, and just sort of being able to live our life as we're supposed to within that sort of framework of that frequency.
It's a
Right, so-
manageable control.
Right, exactly. So it's something that is completely plausible, and with the instances of like interdimensional beings, if we're assuming that the Bigfoot is an interdimensional being, it could very well be a creature that doesn't exist on this reality, that we're not able to see 99% of the times or more, 99.5% of the times, whatever. But there's that glitch every so often where that filter maybe goes on the fritz for certain people, or even in the actual, there's some kind of like energy matrix around that particular area that causes everything to sort of blend and we're able to get a glimpse of whatever's on that other side, right?
It's a little bit like a radio dial, where if you tune the dial to a specific radio station, you're listening to a rock station.
Yeah.
Right next to it might be a classical station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the rock station has no idea the classical station is there, and vice versa, until you turn the dial and refocus your attention, or the attention of the dial on the station right next to it.
Gareth, have you ever listened to shortwave radio?
I have, but many years ago, I played around with it a little bit, listening to, and you can pick up a lot of great stuff.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You were able to pick up stuff. I don't know what it's like now, but I mean, you were able to pick up stuff that you just could never imagine.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. But in terms of other dimensions and frequencies, that's essentially what it is, though, right? You're tuning your attention to different layers, if you slice it all up. So in other words, all along the dial on a radio, all of these radio stations, all of these different channels, are all coexisting at the same time in the same space, but at different vibrations.
And we're only able to patch into certain ones.
Exactly. Yeah. So this kind of bleeds into, I guess, the another topic we can touch on here is the dead. And if we're surrounded, what if there's another dimension with us right now, of where the soul or our essence or our personality or whatever you want to call it, when our body stops functioning, it leaves us and goes to another dimension of reality, but not a different space. We're in the same space, but a different bandwidth, a different radio station, so to speak. And occasionally, when someone sees a ghost or some paranormal phenomena, there's bleed through. Like sometimes
Glitch.
when you're tuning in a station,
Glitch.
and you get like a little bit of one station and a little bit of another station as you're tuning, and they kind of bleed into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's something like that. What do you think?
A glitch.
What do you think?
A glitch.
Uh-huh.
I agree with that. The only thing I would suggest is that if you take at face value any of the reports of poltergeist activity, which is activity that actually moves objects or whatever, it causes like things to move or blinds to shift or whatever the case may be. If you take those at face
spots,
if you take those at face value and as legitimate scenarios, then that raises a whole different sort of slew of questions as to whether it is a scenario like you just stated, where we just elevate ourselves to a different frequency when our physical bodies die. It could be a combination with different things. You know what I mean? We could be dealing with totally different things here. Our souls, if we have souls, or our essence, when our physical bodies die, might very well progress to the next higher frequency, which resides in the same plane, so to speak, but has different aspects to it. And what we're getting with poltergeist could be something completely different. Yeah,
because with poltergeists or so-called intelligent hauntings, you're going to get apports, right? Objects appearing out of nowhere.
Yep.
You're going to get things moving. You're going to get some kind of communication between whatever it is and the people who live in the house or building or whatever the case may be. There's some kind of interaction. It's as if whatever this entity or thing or whatever it is, they are aware of you, and because of the things they do in the vicinity, you become aware of them. And it is a kind of two-way deal. There's many cases where there's been malevolent hauntings or with entities or whatever they may be, where some very, very scary / disturbing things have happened, and the entity will communicate. Like there was a book I read a while ago. I'm trying to think of the name of it, where the entity would write on the bathroom mirror, messages in soap. And
I know that
do you know
story
what
too.
I'm talking about? I'm
Yeah.
totally brain farting on the name of it.
There's a house.
It was a
down
great
there.
book. But the way it would
There's
work,
a house down there.
the way it would work is that the entity would write with soap on the bathroom mirror, and the person would go in and they'd read it, and then they'd get a towel and they'd wipe it all off the mirror,
Mm.
and then they'd go out of the bathroom, close the bathroom door, wait a minute or two, and then go back in, and then there'd be another message, and there's no one in the bathroom.
Well, it's like that case that we talked about before, Gareth, the Polaroid case.
Oh, the ghostwriter, yeah.
The ghostwriting. Similar.
Yeah, that was a
They
great
couldn't
one.
understand. Yeah, couldn't understand. They still can't understand. Only with the Polaroid camera capturing these. Writing on the Polaroids. What's happening? Why? There's no explanation.
It's almost when you think about something like that, right? Where you're in a house where there's phenomena taking place, and you have a Polaroid camera, and you ask a question into thin air. You take a picture of anything, a wall, a chair, whatever. You take a picture. The Polaroid comes out, and then the Polaroid develops in your hand. And in the photograph, there's a photograph of the wall, the chair, whatever you took, but overlaid that in this very creepy kind of wispy writing is the answer to your question.
Yep.
Right? Now, not only does it not make any sense, it also sounds ridiculous. Right? It sounds like to the level of you're out of your minds. This is obviously some trickery. You got David Copperfield or Siegfried and Roy or some shit doing something with the camera, right? This is obvious nonsense. There's no way this is true. And that's your initial thought when you hear something like that. But what intrigued me about this case, and this case never really blew up into some huge big, we're going to make a multi-million-dollar movie out of this. This will make us a fortune, and we're going to write all these books. None of that happened.
And that's what I like about this case.
None of this happened. But some of the most intriguing things about this was that, and for viewers watching, this was brought to the public's attention in a TV show called Sightings in the early 1990s, like 93, 94, around that. Sightings did a full episode on the ghostwriter. And what was amazing is one of the paranormal investigators, Kerry Gaynor, who worked with Barry Taff on the entity case in the 70s, working at UCLA. They went to this facility, this house, this haunted house in LA, and they took their own Polaroid camera. So they had this Polaroid camera that they had in their lab, and they put a fresh, brand new pack of film in it. They sealed it. They sealed the camera so it couldn't be opened and tampered with.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave it to the guy, and he went into the house and he asked his question, took a picture of the wall or whatever. The picture came out, and there was the answer to his question on the film.
Yep. It's a great story. It's a great case, and like you mentioned, Gareth, it didn't blow up,
No.
and I think that's what I like about this case. It's not. It hasn't been portrayed in some reality TV show or whatever.
Right.
As this, the new demon house.
Yeah,
it
there was no multi-book deal. There was no TV show, no movies. It was a case that came out of nowhere. It was stumbled upon by the Sightings crew. They went out. They made one episode in 93 or 94. And that was it. We never heard anything about it since.
That's the entity, right?
No, this is
No.
the ghostwriter case.
Okay, yes.
From Sightings, yeah, on the Polaroid film.
Yes.
And things like that. It just blows your mind because it not only does it seem really silly and really stupid, Polaroid film. I mean, come on, what are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Right? It sounds ridiculous, but that here we are. Here we have it.
Yeah.
It's
You're
amazing.
gonna have to go out and buy a Polaroid on eBay.
I know. Yeah, you can't. They're not readily available anymore, huh?
Yeah.
No.
I have one somewhere.
You gotta-
It'd probably be hard to find a film.
Yeah,
Wait,
Polaroid
isn't there
film
an
now.
app for
It'd
that?
be expensive now, right, to get film and stuff. Everyone uses.
It was
Everyone uses
kind of
their phone.
expensive then. I think it was like $20 for like 10 pictures or
10
something.
pictures. Yeah, you're right.
I think it'd probably be more than that now, just it's
Yeah,
because no one's making the film anymore. So you'll be buying like old stock. So it'll probably be
I
lot
used
more
to use
expensive.
it on my cases and stuff like that. I used to do
Old
Polaroid.
stock is great.
and Get it.
Uh-huh.
Never got anything, but it was a pretty much a big staple before we started doing 35 millimeter and digital.
Have you guys, when you've gone on investigations and you've taken photographs, have you ever gotten anything on a photograph that made you think, "Whoa, that's unusual. What's that?"
Oh yeah.
I would say one of my first cases, actually, I forgot to even post about this. I went to Bachelor's Grove just recently, and I was just telling the story as we were there of the first time I went, which I think was like my 19th birthday or something. Going ghost hunting for my birthday. That's the life I live.
Uh-huh.
And,
Justin, tell them about Bachelor's Grove before you get into it, because
Oh yeah. It's tons of stories. They go back to the late 1800s. It was it's a cemetery, obviously, but it was mostly for the German settlers that were building train tracks and a few other things during that time. And some of them, if I remember correctly, they got into an accident, so they ended up burying them there, and then the locals eventually just took on the cemetery from that. But that's just the beginning of that.
Uh-huh.
It goes on longer. You got stories of a two-headed man seen in the lagoon, car lights coming from that same area, because at some point during the 1920s and so the mafia was dumping bodies into the little retention pond there.
Uh-huh.
And they were hanging out along the stream. You have that. You have a disappearing house. You have, obviously the weird sounds and seeing creepy figures. There's actually a gravestone there that's of a baby. And since I've been going that's over about 20 years now, or since I've known about it, they leave little gifts for the baby. For the headstone there. So we went and there were still gifts there, leaving coins and toys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, the story. The creepier part besides that is that it's tucked into this forest preserve area right off the main, not the main highway, but right off the main street, Midlothian Turnpike. You'll see the pond when you pass it, but you won't really see the cemetery unless it's like a clear through the trees or anything like that. So you kind of have to walk to get there and all that. But I've been there. The only creepiest time was when I first went, and nothing happened that scared me. It was just more or less the guy that was with us. It always seems like that. The person we bring with us is more scared than the main people there. So he wanted to leave at some point. I don't know what he was scared about. He thought, it was crazy. And I believe he was there once and he had some weird experience. Or if I remember correctly, they took a picture and they supposedly had got a head on a headstone. Actually, it was like coming from the headstone. But from what I saw the picture, it was just basically a blotch of light.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could be anything, but it was a blotch of light.
Right.
So he ended up leaving, and we walked him back to the opening of the walkway, the patches to the cemetery. And as we're walking, me and my friend Chris, we just start hearing, it sounds like things were walking on the sides of us, in the woods. And it got louder as we came close to the cemetery. And it could be animals, of course. And
like in the
that.
darkness, something was
Yes.
paralleling you, like walking
on both sides.
But you couldn't see them.
We couldn't. It's really dark at that time we went, and just the way the woods come in, you're literally, sometimes the trees are just overarching the area, so that already gives a creepy feel in that sense. But yeah, we heard that. It could have been anything, but that's what we heard, and I just got this feeling. I can't really explain it. It just was a feeling, and I said, take a picture in front of us. First time we ever used a digital camera, and I got the biggest white orb ever that I've ever had. That's the biggest white orb. As soon as I said take this picture, and it was in front of the gates of the cemetery, and that would be the only. The rest of them would be weird shadow type blotches that I would see in the corner of pictures that we've taken, mostly from digital. But this is the first time that I had something that somewhat correlates with a feeling and the sensation that we had, and it was when I wish I had that picture now. It's lost. But yeah, it was one of the biggest orbs I've ever seen.
Now, when you go ghost hunting or researching, and you're out, and you said you were with someone and they were scared, do you try to scare them?
No, no. I have some respect. I'm not one of those guys.
For me, I mean, the temptation would be overwhelming. I'm sorry, it would be pretty hard not to. But how about you, Alex and Steve? Alex, have you had any photographic evidence?
I had one, and I can't for the life of me find where the hell I put it, but I had one photograph that I took at a friend's house, or apartment rather, and she had complained that she had some weird things happening there. So we went, myself and another friend went there, and we tried doing whatever we could. We did EVP recording session, EMF, and what have you. And one picture I took of an area where she claimed there was some really weird activity. And the funny thing is that, and it was a digital camera, right? So it wasn't a film camera. But everything around this, like there was a bag, like sort of like a laptop bag or whatever you want to call it, on the floor. Everything around that was hazy, blurry, like really blurry, except that laptop bag.
Wow.
That laptop bag was in complete focus. Now I know that, and it's not, and I'm not talking about like the laptop bag was extremely far from the background where, you know, it focused on the bag and not the background. Everything was within really close proximity to each other. So there was no reason for the focus to be strictly on the bag, and then everything else was blurry. But I haven't been able to locate that photo in years, so unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good. And I'm assuming that the photograph taken before and after it was fine. It's just that one, the one that's strange. How about you, Steve? Have you run into anything like that? Any strange photographs that you've taken when you're out and about investigating?
I have, and I sent you the link in Skype if you want to take a look at it. It's a photograph I took from an abandoned hospital just weeks before it was demolished. I went there on a scouting mission because we were going to investigate it, but I wanted to make sure it was safe enough to investigate. Unfortunately, it wasn't. There was just too many red flags with the place. Beautiful place. Unfortunately, just too many problems with it. And I was snapping pictures, and I captured one in particular that shows a very unusual anomaly, and something that I sent to a photography expert friend of mine who analyzed it and told me basically there was nothing, no screw-ups or manipulations of the metadata of the photo, of the photo itself, the actual file. So whatever was taken was actually there. So the camera was fine. It was working fine. There was nothing wrong with the camera. And there was nothing edited, obviously. The pictures that you're seeing are all natural, but just in their different layers. And basically what you see, or at least what most, 9 out of 10 people who have seen the photo tend to see a woman holding something in a doorway.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I was just trying to figure out how to get it onto the stream. There is a way to do it, but I'm still trying to figure out this software. But yeah, I do see the woman, and this is particularly. I wish I could show this photo, guys. It's a particularly disturbing picture. There's also like a black mass, like a strange misty black mass to the right. But there's definitely a woman in that footage. It's clear. I mean, in the two pictures that you provide there, Steve, I'm assuming the one on the top is the darkness, is just a standard photo, and the one is where you bring out the you change the brightness on the
Okay,
image.
so I believe there's 4 photos or 3 photos in particular and one blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your first one is the actual picture.
Right.
The second is the black and white infrared,
Okay.
and the third is all the coloration has been taken out, so you just see the lighting actually. And the fourth and final picture is just a blown up sort of section of the infrared.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying
Steve,
to.
why don't you put the link on the chat,
Yeah,
Steve, so that people can see
I
it.
can put the link in there; they can see it. I'm just trying to figure out if we can put it actually in the screen. We should be able to. I'm just trying to figure out how to. I've done it before, but I'm at a loss right now. So I do apologize. I wasn't prepared to add this. Let's see if I can do. Oh, I know what I can do. Check this out. I'll do this. This is a better idea. Give me tell us some more about it, Steve, while I get this going.
So anyways, I wanted to along with this, I always video I always take video footage of a walkthrough scouting sort of the environment. And I was taking some video footage of this particular moment as well. And in the video footage, there's absolutely nothing in that particular moment that the pictures were taken. There was nothing on video, absolutely nothing.
Okay,
so
I'm almost there. You want to add to this, Alex, while I just tweak this and get so I can pull it up on the screen and everyone can see it?
Yeah, well, I wasn't there when Steve took this, but he did showed me this early on in the stage, and you could see it clearly. I would have loved to have been there, obviously.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like
it's a great place. It was a great place.
It looks like a great place. It's almost reminiscent of like the Whippy Psych that I used to go to. Yeah, that place was awesome too, right? But it's definitely something that stands out.
There it is. There you go. You guys should be able to see it right there, right now. I just put it in the. It's right in the center there. It's covering Alex's face right now, but it's right in the center. Now, if you look at it right here, you can see the top it's very dark and has a greenish tint, but there's also like a little there's a dark like black blob to the right of it, and that looks like some kind of shadow or something, Steve. I'm not sure what that is, but if you look at the photo underneath that. When you've adjusted the light contrast on the photograph, you can clearly see what looks like a woman standing on the left-hand side of the corridor.
Yeah, I mean, you hear different variations of what people see, but for the majority of people that have looked at these photos. Or the original photo. And of course, I don't force feed what I think is there. I just ask, what do you see? And basically, it's always the same answer. I see a woman carrying either a candle or some sort of lantern or something. Now, I'm not afraid to mention the name of this place because it's no longer there. The place was called the Shidoki Hospital. And it had a long history, of being a during World War II, I believe. During World War II, it was used as a people who were injured during the war were brought there to to facilitate them, to help them recover. And I know there have been a lot of stories from a lot of nurses that used to work there, of many different hauntings, experiences there. And that was the reason why I wanted to get in there, and I was able to actually get exclusive, permission to go on there before it was demolished, which is a shame because I would have loved to do a full investigation, but unfortunately it was just unsafe. It was just too unsafe.
Now, when you were there, Steve, and you took this photograph, was there any phenomena going on, or was it nothing happened, and then you were surprised when you actually you went home and looked at the images you took and saw that, or were you kind of expecting to get something on film?
No, nothing. I mean, there was nothing. No, nothing. I was actually really surprised when I saw it. And again, I had photos taken before and after directly, literally dozens of them, and none of them before or after show this particular image. It was only this particular photo that captured whatever that may be. The only other thing that happened was I had a person with me from the group, from the society, a sensitive, an empath, if you will, and let me tell you, I don't bank on empaths. I'm very skeptical, but I have worked with 3 in particular, out of many that have shown or proven to me they do really have an ability to be able to pick up energies very, very accurately, so much so that it's striking that it some of the situations that they've been in have just blown me away. And like I said, I'm very crucial with working with these people. But I mean, the people who are in the society, it's just amazing what they've been able to pick up. But one in particular that was with me during this period had picked up somebody who was trying to reach out. Didn't really say too much about the person, but the person was trying to reach out, trying to make contact, but didn't have enough energy to do so. So,
yeah, it's working with psychics and the like. It's a very mixed bag, though, right? You have to get someone that you trust.
Absolutely.
Because it's you don't know whether they're just making stuff up as they go along, or whether they're legitimately getting information from someplace else. Well,
yep.
Well, guys, we're going to be starting to wrap up the show fairly soon. I want to just kind of let's see if I can bring in Justin the final time. I know he doesn't have his thing working, but we can have like a black space. Justin is he's just so I can get my arm right. He's right there. There you go. I'm pointing right now. He's that black spooky space in the corner. That's Justin. We could do like the Brady Bunch here. If you look to your
yes,
and point to this blank space where Justin's camera is not working. Let's go through some of the comments that we've had here.
Beautiful.
Let's see. Steve, Evil Earl has been quite vocal. He said a lot of good points. When we talked about, he said it was like a dimensional sideband when we talked about the radio, which is a fairly accurate description. Marcel Anderson says that I think it's a she.
It's Marcel, yeah.
She used to watch Sightings and she loved it. Yep, me too. I loved Sightings. Great show. And she also says that was a great shot, Steve. The photograph you took of the ghost, which I have to agree, it was pretty awesome. That's a spectacular ghost photograph, Steve. and knowing that it was taken by you, it just adds to the validity that that was a legitimate shot of something very, very strange. Very strange. And also, Marcel says, poor Justin.
Thank you for the sympathy tonight.
Poor Justin with his technical woes. He's
not getting sympathy from us.
No, not from us.
No.
Justin.
Yeah, I was getting it behind stage, everyone.
We're gonna curse him, or he's already cursed.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of wraps it up, I guess, for this week's edition of Mindset Live. We've touched on some great topics this evening, some paranormal topics. We'll come back next week and do it all again. I would like to ask you all to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified, and hit the bell so you'll be notified when the next live stream comes on. Also, you can go to mindsetcentral.com and check out some of the podcasts that I produce. Let's go see where you can go find all the other guys. Let's go to Steve. Steve, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, the radio show, Nocturnal Frequency Radio, live every Sunday night between 9 and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, can be heard exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network, which is www.newvisionsradio.com. And we just got up our new YouTube channel that will be housing all the archives.
Awesome.
Yeah, just go to YouTube and type in Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and you'll find us there.
Very, very cool. That's a great idea, Stu. I'm really glad you're doing that. Alex, where can you be discovered on the interwebs?
Same place.
Nocturnal Frequency
I don't
Radio.
have anything of my own,
Okay,
so
okay.
yeah, I'll just tag along with Steve.
All right, and now we go to the international man of mystery, and we're not talking about Austin Powers. We're talking about Justin Villarreal. Where can you be discovered, Justin?
As you can see, you can find me on the deep web. No. You can find me here sometimes, and you can find me at the anonymousradionetwork.podbean.com.
.podbean.com. There you go. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and checking us out this Monday evening. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. If you have, go ahead and please, if I can get this right, I'm always subscribe. Go ahead and hit that button. Subscribe down below, and there'll be more next week. And join myself, Steve, Alex, and Justin next Monday night, where we'll have some more unusual, mysterious, and maybe scary topics to discuss. Good night, all. Don't get too scared.
Good night.
See you.
Good night, everyone.
See you next week.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.